It's great to be here. My name is Amy Russ, and I am a program manager at Public Architecture. Public Architecture is a 501c3 nonprofit. It's national in scope and scale, and it's based here in San Francisco. We started about 10 years ago with a modest goal in mind, and that was to encourage designers to mobilize and change the world. We operate with a model of commit, act, share. We gather the commitment of the design professions. We act on our own commitment by taking on design projects, but we also encourage others to take on public interest design projects. And we share that the experiences and the best practices and lessons that we learn through both the 1% program that I run, as well as the experiences of all the designers participating. Today, our mission is to provide the network and the knowledge necessary to use the design of the built environment as a tool for social gain. As designers, we're typically serving just the top 10% of society, and public architecture is interested in the other 90%. So the 1% program was started also about the same time as public architecture, about 10 years ago. It challenges design firms of the built environment, so that would include architects, landscape architects, interior designers, engineers, to make a commitment to pro bono service, just 1%, and that's the equivalent of just 20 hours per year per person. And we also offer a matching service. So nonprofit organizations are joining the program when they have an unmet design service need. We often look towards other professions, and specifically the legal profession is a great model. They're much more advanced in this type of work and have been doing it for over 100 years. To the point where in 1993 they had a watershed moment where they adopted the Model Rule 6.1 that now recommends that every lawyer has a professional responsibility to provide legal services to those who can't pay, and they recommend 50 hours a year. So through the 1% program, we're able to look at the benefits that design can bring. It helps them build the capacity to serve their mission. It can increase the fundraising and development, can bring awareness to their issue areas. It strengthens their brand and identity, and it helps with staff in terms of their satisfaction and stress levels at work. With designers, we're seeing the number one reason to do this work is for personal satisfaction. But it doesn't undermine that there are pragmatic benefits to doing pro bono work, that it gives firms creative opportunities, different project types. It also helps with staff, and especially junior staff are looking at firms that have strong social responsibility initiatives. It can help firms get involved locally and build community relations. So the program has over 1,100 firms now that are participating, and they include every size of firm, from sole proprietors to the largest firms in the country. There is good representation of landscape architecture. CMG is one, Bionic is another, so it's nice to have people in the crowd participating. All the way to large firms, Gensler, HOK, and there's over 700 nonprofits. They range from large impact national scale groups like United Way, and Habitat for Humanity. Also, some US-based nonprofits that are doing work internationally, like Room to Read and Kiva. But there are great opportunities for landscape designers. Here locally, we have an informal partnership with the San Francisco Parks Alliance, and they feed us neighborhood park needs pretty regularly. So this is the relative activity of the program across the country. We're in every 50 state, and there's over 15,000 designers that are represented in those 1,100 firms, and the value of their contributions is now about $43 million every year, and these numbers are always growing. So we look at, if you can see in the upper left, the white figures are representative of Public Architecture's office. We're small, just 5 people, but it's the network that we build through the 1% that enables the kind of scalable change. This is what the website looks like, though probably by the end of the year we'll have a new site launched. And you can see that you can find project opportunities, you can use a project gallery, and get connected. We see ourselves belonging not only to the design community, but to a growing community online. This is Kiva, who is a micro finance lender where individuals can lend small amounts of money to other individuals across the world and finance small-scale projects that have real economic benefit. Another group is Kickstarter, that is a great fundraising tool. And so we see ourselves as part of this social capital aggregating community. So public architecture also takes on our own design initiatives. They're a chance for us to show that designers have a role to play as problem identifier rather than just problem solver. And this is the process that we typically take each one of our projects through. We identify and frame the problem. We build the team, and typically, since we're such a small office, we don't necessarily have the expertise in-house, that we reach out to the network that we've built to build a team that represents the needs. We develop the resources, and typically those are open source that we share with the broader community. We engage the community, determine their needs, and we're able to connect diverse groups outside of design that can help advance the project. We're evaluating our outcomes and sharing that with the greater community as well. So I have one project to share with you today, and it's our day labor station project. This project is an example of the type of projects that we do that are prototypical in nature and tackle issues of broad social relevance. The contributions of day laborers typically go unseen. The places where they do business are not designed for what they need, such as street corners and parking lots and gas stations, and they often lack the amenities that they need, such as restrooms and generally the basic needs. So there are a couple more organized locations for day laborers, but it's not the norm. it's a historical need that that we felt was worth investing into. We designed the day labor station to meet those needs. So giving them the kinds of things that they would use, such as an office, restroom, and kitchen. These are the types of spaces that would serve their needs as well. And this is a concept drawing of the types of materials that could be used. We see these as being off the grid and using reused materials as much as possible. We got together with a group called the National Day Labor Organizing Network, that's also known as NDLON. And they have an infrastructure, a network across the country that, someday we hope that this project can enter our 1% program and that designers can help implement these across the country. We do have one site already selected that we're looking into in Los Angeles, and it's adjacent to a community garden. These are some renderings of how we see it fitting within the site as a gathering place. The community garden would give great a benefit of having a place to do work and to contribute to the community outside of their typical jobs, as well as a healthy benefit by introducing better eating habits and produce into their lives. Could also serve as a place where the community could come and have something from the cafe, food, and it could be a resource for education and training. So the next section, I'm just going to share a couple of the resources that we have produced. This is The Power of Pro Bono. It's a book that's published by Metropolis in 2010. It profiles 40 case study projects across the country, and it's told in the first person by both the designer and the client. It gives equal weight to the client, and it's really the first of its kind in that way. These are our two e-resources that are free to download. They help people just considering this kind of work to understand the best practices if you're a designer, how to integrate this into your office, and the resources that are there for you. And for nonprofits, it's really an educational tool in most of them having never worked with a designer before. We also produced the Design for Reuse primer, which profiles 15 projects that utilized reused materials, and it is meant to be a resource for those architects and designers and the construction industry that want to incorporate reused materials in their everyday work. So the next part that I'd like to introduce is an interest area for public architecture that's evolving. Design Access has evolved into an annual summit. We just concluded the second annual Design Access Summit. It brings together a group of diverse professionals from nonprofits, from the design community, from the funding community, as well as government, to sit at the same table and to tackle some of the issues, challenges of the built environment. we feel that we are only beginning to scratch the surface of how the built environment impacts human and environmental health, social justice, and economic prosperity. There are many effective projects, agencies, organizations, and firms, but we feel that we're missing the opportunity to work together to use this impact to improve communities. So the next series of slides are to show the equity and how the role of the built environment has how it has an impact on our lives and where the opportunities are. So 38% of American adults have not walked for more than 10 minutes straight over the last week. Poor children and children of color, particularly those living in dilapidated inner city housing, are 5 times more likely to have elevated levels of blood or lead in their blood. As much as 80% of timber in a factory ends up in the trash. And an example would be, for every chair that's produced, nearly the same and equal amount of wood is discarded. An adult in a less walkable neighborhood is 50% more likely to develop diabetes than an adult in a more walkable neighborhood, and that's regardless of income. Every 10 minutes of commuting cuts all forms of civic engagement by 10%, and that would be volunteering, attending meetings. American school children missed 12 million days of school in 2000 due to asthma. Though nearly 3/4 of jobs are located in metropolitan areas, the average employer can only reach 27% of the available labor pool via transit in less than 90 minutes. People who are socially disconnected are between 2 and 5 times more likely to die from all causes. The obesity problem, we all know, is pretty bad, and it's an epidemic, but it's especially bad for young girls who have a likelihood of 121 to 276% higher odds of being obese if their neighborhoods don't have things like sidewalks or walking paths, recreation centers, etc. So I think, you could think that was pretty overwhelming to think of the scale of those issues, but we're only beginning to kind of look at how we can address those challenges. And our motive might be altruistic, but it can also be a pragmatic one. We know that the social sector has an annual revenue of $1.8 trillion, and we think that it's a vastly untapped sector for the design community. And so the next series of slides are showing some of those opportunities and those brighter points. Walking between 3 and 6 kilometers in a forested landscape dropped blood glucose by 40%, compared to a drop of 20% when using treadmills and pools. Adding landscape areas to housing developments resulted in 25% reduction in some types of domestic violence. Adding greenery or landscape elements to retail environments increases profit margins by 12%, while adding daylighting can increase profit margins by 40%. Converting an underdeveloped property into a community garden has led to 30% reduction in crime immediately and a 56% reduction after 2 years. So what can we do? The next series of slides are going to show how others have made this kind of systemic change. And usually it's a disruption to the status quo or to the system. This is an example of an individual who brought huge change. His name is Samuel Plimsoll, and he lobbied in the late 18th century that he was concerned with cargo ships and that there were numerous sinkings and huge loss of life. So he designed what's now called the Plimsoll line, and you'll now see this on every cargo ship, and it shows the maximum weight capacity of boats. And so no longer can you pile containers so high and risk the lives of everyone on board. The next is when a few individuals get together, and I think you all kind of recognize this being in the Bay Area. I grew up in the Bay Area, and I can remember decades ago when food was pretty good, but there's been a real change in the last 10 years or so, or more than that, where it's groups like Chez Panisse, Acme Bread, and Kermit and Lidge that today we have such pride in our local cuisine that it's become so influential around the world that we expect quality and artisan. So the next example is when millions of people get together to make change. And this is the Americans with Disabilities Act. In the beginning, more than 20 years ago, each of these groups were acting independently. They weren't a coordinated effort, so the blind, the handicapped, all had their own objectives and were not working collectively. Someone had the good idea to start collaborating, and together they were able to pass the Americans with Disabilities Act. And whether you love it or hate it, there are 60 million individuals that have a disability, and it's had a huge improvement in their lives. So I'm now getting to the close of my talk, and I thought that I would end with Public Architecture's call to action. And I'm going to let you read these slides. This is an estimate of all designers of the built environment, and if each one of them contributed 1% of their annual billable hours to pro bono service, it would be 20 million hours annually, and that would be the same thing as one of the largest firms in the country working full-time for the public good. And this is the way to find more about us.